So we're here with John Kohler. We're here in Nevada in the most amazing scenic park in John's backyard, so to speak, in one of the places that uh, you can be seen around doing your thing. So I'm Dave Escamilla with Rapid Regeneration. I'm not a medical professional, not making any medical claims about diseases, nor is my guest, but I'm just so excited to um, bring you a special interview here with John Kohler here in this beautiful setting. So, John, thanks for talking with us.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're here in this beautiful setting, and and today we did this hike, and it was very intense. And John's an intense guy, and I say that in a good way. You're
Yeah.
someone that a lot of people look up to for healthy lifestyle, healthy diet. You got into this to try to avoid a problem or solve a problem, but also now I guess it's a question of, are you doing it to avoid a problem, or are you doing it because you just want to improve and have a better, you want some benefit from it? And so talk to us about you know why you started on this journey, and then are you still thinking about that in terms of like solving a health issue, or do you think more about, I just want to operate at the highest level, or what does that evolution look like for John Kohler?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dave. So I think in the beginning, my main issue, because I had almost lost my life from spinal meningitis caused by complement immune deficiency, and the doctors basically blamed it on bad genes. And then I also learned that was coupled with improper lifestyle, including diet. And then, so at that point, I needed to make changes to improve my immune system, right? So like, I don't know, people will put into the blogosphere that like I live in this fear-based mentality, but I don't do things out of fear. I do things out of health and for like to improve myself and become better. I just do things to the maximum of my benefit. Like how could I really do things the best way possible? And like I think I do things because like I've learned what I believe to be like the healthy way to do things, and I'm just going to go all in. And I do this to optimize, to be the best person that I could be, to achieve, the best health I can based on my beliefs and the information that I've come across, researched, and learned.
Okay, so we're talking with John Kohler. Of course, you know John from OK Raw, from Growing Your Greens, from Discount Juicers. Uh, John has been, in this, I guess you could say, healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, really committed to this for over 30 years
For
now.
30 years now. This is my 30th year.
Wow. So I guess my question is, it goes beyond just feeling good and knowing that you have a clean bill of health and knowing you don't have health issues. Um, is that you said you want to be healthy optimally to be all you can be as a person, or what is it that's really driving you? What's the why beyond the why of really wanting to be healthy and energetic for John Kohler?
So why? So my goal these days is to actually have a family and have children and see them being raised and have them see them grow up. So I could be and play with them, when they're older and play football, catch, go hiking, do all the fun stuff, right? So like I want to not only have like a longevity, but also want to have a good health span and lifespan. So like the health span is like what the people that most people eating a conventional diet get wrong. They may
Yes.
live long, but the last 10 years or 20 years of their life, they're like in a wheelchair. Like my dad is in, a care center right now, memory care for people with Alzheimer's. His quality of life, in my opinion, is very, very poor,
Mm.
unfortunately. And like a lot of people get sick and then they have a very poor quality of life for their last years on the planet, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So like I really am looking forward to having a long life and health span, which is where I'm like, out doing things, not just like in like a care facility for my last years. So like that really actually these days drives me, Dave, because we want to look at health span, we have to look into like what goes into having a good health span. And so some of my recent research and what I've looked up and what also the science would confirm is that our microbiome is very important for our health span. We can look at centenarians and they've sequenced centenarians microbiomes, and there's certain like key foundational species that they'll have in certain numbers, and they'll have certain specific bacteria that like all the centenarians have this bacteria, but then like most Americans don't have that bacteria. And like, it's like, okay, yeah, correlation doesn't mean causation, but it's like, and then they found out that these specific microbes do certain things in the body, to like help ward off diseases. So like part of what I mean, and I never took this into consideration before, because when I got into a raw vegan diet, like the microbiome literally wasn't discovered. And so we had books from the 1900s and things where natural hygienists wrote, books and all these things. And at the time, those books were excellent because that was the best information they had. And I think it's really sad that some people these days still follow books from like the 1900s when they should be taking like actual science, if they believe the science, into consideration for their health, if that's important to them, or if they just want to live by dogma. So like, that's why, I made some dietary changes in recent years and started to incorporate small amounts of specifically processed heated foods, right? That aren't just like, I'm not just going out to restaurants or nothing. I like cook everything in an instant pot with water, so it keeps the heat low and can give me especially additional fibers that would not be on a only fruit and vegetable diet with, other things like nuts and seeds.
Okay. And just to clarify, centenarian is someone who lives at least a century?
Yeah, like 100 years. So like in the blue zones, for example, they've tested like people in the blue zones, and, people in blue zones, like there's no fruitarians or even raw vegan that live in blue zones. But the main fact is, if you want to read the Blue Zones book by Dr. Buettner, he, a lot of them eat, a higher starch diet, which I think you get overboard on starch, and there's some starchitarians that I think eat too much starch. But we want to really eat a nutrient-dense diet that, in my opinion, comprise of a lot of different food types with a lot of different fibers and phytonutrients.
Okay.
So we want to diversify.
And this is it's a complex, nuanced issue, right? It's like part of it may also be that there's not that many raw vegans to study, because there's not a lot of them. But also, what I like about John Kohler is that John is really a researcher, an investigator, someone who looks at objective facts and is constantly analyzing and updating your your knowledge base. And so
making small adjustments and tweaks. I'm not going carnivore because that will shorten your life, absolutely, based on the science and based on people taking surveys of how long people's lived on different diets. But yeah.
So let me ask you about dogma in the specifically in the raw vegan community and movement and stuff, because raw vegan is to the viewer out there, a lot of maybe very familiar with it, maybe experimenting with it. For me, it's a tool that's worked a lot. I've had a lot of success using it. I know you have as well, and others have. What are your thoughts on why do we see dogma in the movement, or this rigidity of one size fits all? Everyone should do this, everyone should do that, and it seems like a lot of folks there's missing flexibility or nuance, and then some people never seem to change their positions. It's like the same from day one. But you're an example of someone who's had an evolution. You've updated your lifestyle, and so please share your thoughts with us, John Kohler, on this.
So the dogma, that's an interesting discussion topic, Dave. So I would say that, like, so here's the example. Like, if you go from a standard American diet, which is really not good, and you're going to get probably the worst health in the whole world, actually. And then you go to like a raw vegan, maybe even high fruit diet, you get healed because now it's what you're leaving out, but also, of course, there's really good nutrition in fruits and vegetables that you're getting in. And then now you're healed from whatever ailment you have. And that's because you're leaving out the crap and now you're putting in good stuff. Now, you shouldn't make the assumption that just because this worked for you now to heal you from where you were, took you to here, doesn't mean it's going to take you to where you want to maybe be in the next level, right? Is my thing. So like, I've seen people like basically like they get to a certain point, they plateau, and then, based on dietary rigidity, in my opinion, you get kind of locked into a plateau, and then you can't kind of go to the next level, like for a video game example, right? Because you're kind of locked into the plateau, and your diet, even if you're kind of choosing the best foods within that plateau or your diet or your dogma, not going to get you to the next place. So like that's personally what I found for me. And I think that also the other thing is that very important with the nuance you talk about, like nuance make things much more incredibly complex, like
Yes.
incredibly more complex. I don't know it all, like for sure I'll never know it all, but it also, nuance makes you think a lot more, because now you have to think about some of these things more critically. And unfortunately, one of the things we're not taught in school is like critical thinking, unfortunately. And dogma is basically this is right, this is wrong, and it's like binary. It's like on or off, and it's like either you're right or you're wrong. And it's like it's easier to deal with for people that maybe haven't been trained on how to deal with critical
Right.
thinking. And of
Right.
course, from a young age,
Yes.
because of the MGM I was in, I was trained to think critically. So I mean that's probably also played a part of it. And then also too, just over the years, I've seen people come and go in the movement. I've been exposed to a lot of different other teachers that have been into it for longer than me, that have also adopted and learned some of from their wisdom and teachings over the many years as well. So it's not just like stuff I came up with. Like, I will credit people like in my videos. Like I have a video like why raw food works, and I heard Dr. Jameis Sheraton in Sedona, Arizona give a talk about this, right? And I credit him in the information I share, because I didn't come up with it. Like I'm not like I am. I look up a lot of stuff. I come up with some of the things myself, but I've
Yeah.
learned from people that came before me that we could learn from and hopefully improve upon. And so like he had the basis of that talk, but then I added things like he was not aware of, like the microbiome that he wasn't aware of, maybe some other small factors.
Okay.
So it's like, I mean, so that's where it literally comes from. Like I've learned from a lot of people on my 30-year journey, like always going to different health conferences, expos, retreats, and hearing so many people talk and researching published studies and all these things, which then it's like when you have the information and like you have conflicting information, then there's two things you could do. You could say that information's wrong. I'm going to stick to what I know, which is, in my opinion, the easy route, or the more difficult route. And for people that don't like to think, they may think, John, you think too much. It's giving you headaches. I mean, to me, it makes me feel alive when I'm actually using my supercomputer, not using AI to like make all my decisions and like thinking about these things critically. Of course, I do use AI to get some assistance with my thoughts sometimes, but it's not always right.
Yeah.
And I
So
trust myself more than AI.
so you're like out there in the public, and you've been putting out videos for a long time. Okay Raw is the main one where you're talking about food and nutrition, right? And so when you have a change, you come out and you have an update to your point of view about things. Is that hard? Is that challenging to come out and say, hey, you know what, I may have made some mistakes, or I have a different point of view now? Is that challenging? Do you ever, as a public persona, and there's other people out there too, maybe they struggle with this, but is it challenging to put yourself out there and say, hey, I have a different point of view now?
For me, it's easy, because for me, it comes down to the truth, and I want to just spread the truth as I know it. It may not be other people's truths, but it's for what I know. So, I mean, I'm the #1 seller of juicers in the country, right? Maybe even the world, like, as an independent retailer. And I've probably helped sell more juicers than anybody else alive. I mean, maybe Jay Cordich or Jack LaLanne sold more than me back in the day when they were on the infomercials.
This is for discount juicers.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to basically tell people to basically not juice fruit nowadays. Because like in the past, I juiced lots of fruits, but I saw the consequences of it personally.
Yeah.
And then also to back it up, there's published studies that talk about the consequences of drinking, and I will put this in place, too much fruit juice. And then you ask, what is too much fruit juice? According to the studies, it's 250 milliliters, which is like 8 ounces of juice, of fruit juice. I mean, we both drank more than 250 milliliters of juice today, or fruit juice today. But we did also work out. But
know the rules before you can break the rules.
Right, yeah. But the other thing is, like, people think they drink all this fruit juice and they're doing something healthy. And granted, yes, if you're eating McDonald's, drinking fruit juice is healthier than McDonald's. But the better thing to do, instead of drinking all this fruit juice, is to now drink vegetable juices and things that, I mean, vegetables don't digest as easy, I'll also say that, as fruits. So like, why would you want to juice fruits to make the digestibility easier when we could just chew them up, enjoy them, or even just put them in a vacuum blender and smoothie them up? But we can't easily extract the nutrients out of carrots and the beta carotene, or especially like hardcore older kales and collard greens, right? But then if we juice it, we broke open cell walls, and now we have those nutrients more bioavailable to us.
And what is the issue with juicing fruit, just for the listener, just to clarify, what is the issue there with juicing too much fruit?
So basically, I'll have a video soon on my discount juicer channel that is frogging me out by now. But basically, the published studies show that like disease incidence actually goes up when you drink too much fruit juice. But when you eat the same fruit whole, your disease instances goes down.
Okay.
A lot of chronic diseases that are preventable due to lifestyle, actually.
But why? Is it because we're removing the fiber, and therefore the fiber actually helps with the sugar absorption, and then now that's gone, and so it's potentially spiking blood sugar?
So there's probably many different elements of this. So it's not like one or the other. Most common people that like don't know a lot would say, "Oh, you're just removing the fiber. That's the reason." Mm-mm. So I mean, that's one of the reasons for sure. But once again, we have nuanced reasons versus this black and white thinking like fiber removal. That's the reason.
Yes.
And so I agree, fiber removal is one of the problems. But the other problem too is depending on the extraction method, and depending on the fruit, is that you're also losing phytonutrients in the process.
I see.
And these phytonutrients can play significant roles in your health. So basically, I mean, if you juice blueberries, which in my opinion is probably one of the worst things you could ever juice, or any berries for that matter, if you're juicing any kind of berries, right, you see the juice come out, which now you've liberated most of the fiber. You keep some of the soluble fiber, so there's pectin in blueberries, so like even the blueberry juice you make will gel up because there's soluble fiber. But the issue is now when you're throwing out all the pulp is still quite purple. And now you're throwing away that pulp, and now that's nutrients you're not getting into you. And if you ate the fruit whole and just chewed them up, because our teeth are our best juicers for fruit, right? You're going to get all that nutrients, and then you're not going to oxidize it by putting it in a blender at high speed and oxygenating it or losing some of the fiber. Okay. So like there's once again like there's probably a few other things like other things on why juicing fruits is not good, because it concentrates the amount of fruit that you would otherwise be able to eat, also. Okay. So now you're getting a bigger rush and hit of the sugar, and also with less phytonutrients at the same time, and the fiber matrix is extremely disturbed.
So again, we're getting into this territory
where you got to think a lot more, and most people don't want to think.
Nuance. So you may have a listener out there who's saying like, "Hey, John, just tell me what to do." Just tell me what to do and I'll do that, right? Or let me sign up for a program and let me just follow the program. What would you say? But I don't want to figure out the how, and I don't want to necessarily, figure all this stuff out for myself. I just want someone to tell me what to do. What would you say to that person? What's your message to that person?
See, that's where the problem is. Everybody wants to know what to do, and I mean, it depends on the system. So the overall system that you're guided to, if it's really strict and rigid, I think you're more likely to fail. And plus, you also got to realize that each person is individual. Like say, somebody comes to, I mean, I don't coach people, of course, at all or nothing like that. But if like somebody had like diabetes and stuff, and then your program always told everybody to go 40 days on juice, and a lot of that is fruit juice. Like, in my opinion, and based on the science, that's really not a good one-size-fits-all model, especially for people that are diabetic, to be drinking fruit juice, because actually there's a study that shows like fruit juice can potentially cause diabetes, whereas whole fruit would actually reverse it. So it's like I'm really kind of against like a lot of easy cookie cutter models. What I would say is that for a cookie cutter model, I would look towards more a nuanced model that gives you flexibility. So fruits are great, vegetables are great, even like, other whole plant foods. So the main thing I would say is that we want to eat whole plant foods and high nutrient plant foods, which I mean by that is like colorful plant foods. So, think like kidney beans versus white beans, think blueberries versus bananas, things like purple kale versus standard green kale, think like red lettuce versus iceberg lettuce. Like just by tweaking the kind of lettuce or the kind of bean you're eating, you could have a significantly more nutritious nutrient profile for the same amount of calories, basically, right? So that's one thing I recommend. The other thing is we want to just eat a diversity of whole plant foods, like I said, but also more importantly, want to consider the processing method. Okay. So I mean, that's one size that fits all. Is like focus on whole foods that are as minimally processed as possible, so you don't lose the health benefits. Of course, for me, most of those are raw, because of the raw processing methods, such as slow juicing, such as vacuum blending, such as vacuum freeze drying, and if I'm cooking, then I do heat processing in the Instant Pot with water. So all these methods I consider to be the least minimal way to process foods so that you can eat them and still get the majority of their health benefits. Whereas like if you fry things or even put in a blender and you oxidize the phytonutrients or increase polyphenol oxidase, now you're lowering polyphenols, which are some of the good compounds where we get the health benefits from.
Okay.
So I mean, I basically would recommend a whole food plant-based diet, as much fruits and vegetables, especially the vegetables, as possible, and minimally processed, mostly raw, to maintain their nutrition. I mean, that's a program that I could say could work for everybody. And then between that, you'd have to then find out what whole food plants work the best for you, whether you're going to do what percentage of beans to grains to nuts and seeds to fruits to vegetables to like, even sea vegetables, small amounts to get your iodine and stuff.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think, I'm going to advocate for a whole food plant-based diet for sure. And then once again, there's nuance to, find out what foods, maybe some people can't digest kale because they've only been eating fruit all these years. So they need to eat start out with kale sprouts and then eat 2 of those a day. And I could digest these fine and make sure you chew them well. And then you could maybe graduate to baby kale leaves and then you could do that for a while. And so people need to also check in with themselves. Also, I would encourage everybody to get a microbiome test to see how your gut microbiome is doing. And then, because in the raw vegan movement, we eat for us. Some of the things that are said that why should we eat foods when we can't digest it or easily assimilate the nutrient from it? Well, that's because we want to digest food is the first part of our digestive system. The second part of our digestive system is that everything that we don't digest goes to basically our microbiome, to make it in simple words, and then our bacteria eats all the fibers that we can't digest, including things like starches, which some raw vegans would say are not foods for humans. But then they basically break down the starches that we can't digest and then turn it into short chain fatty acids, which are essential for health.
Okay. So
a lot of nuance.
I want to ask about this microbiome, but I can see where the temptation comes in, because one person says, okay, so John has these tenets, these foundations of his approach, like you said earlier, plants, whole foods, eating the rainbow, but then from there you have to figure out, you got to dial in different parts from there depending on the individual.
Right.
This other person over here is like, oh, their program is easy because it's the exact same thing every time, so maybe I'll go listen to this other person.
Which one's easier to sell?
So
the easy program. People are going to just, this fits all, I could do it, and then I'm not going to tell you the exact answer, and then people hate that because they don't want to think.
And you're someone who's have a skill set of marketing, right?
I went to school for marketing, yes.
And it's easy to sell something when it says 5 easy steps to this such and such. But look, none of this is easy. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be simple, but it is going to be rewarding, to figure this out. And I want to ask John Kohler about the microbiome, because in recent years you've upped your research into microbiome. John Kohler has a longer video about microbiome testing that's on the OK Raw channel. But we have trillions of these little helpers in the body, and they help with so many things. But why are you so interested in the microbiome? Aside from getting tested, what should someone listening be thinking about when it comes to the microbiome?
So the first thing I'll say is that I'm not a microbiome researcher. I've met a lot of microbiome researchers. I've talked to them, went to their talks at different conferences and expos, and heard a lot of them online. I've read a lot of also published studies on microbiome. And so basically what I believe is that, so for the majority of my raw vegan career, I ate for me. I never considered my microbiome. And so, because I'm like, okay, the raw vegan diet's a perfect diet, and if I'm eating this diet, everything's gonna be perfect. I'm gonna be in perfect health, which is, what a lot of people believe. And then when I got my microbiome test and it wasn't as perfect as I thought it would be because I was on the perfect diet, then it made me really question, hey, what's going on here? Why isn't my microbiome perfect? And then I learned about all the different kinds of fibers that you need to eat, resistant starch, and different properties in foods that are not found in fruits and vegetables, that are found in beans and found in starchy vegetables and whatnot, that are very important. And so, and our microbiome is tied with a lot of different disease conditions. So there's a guy in Australia who basically did his master's thesis or whatever on microbiome research 20 years ago, and he's been coaching people with microbiome. So check this out. So this guy, he'll get your microbiome like report, and then it'll just tell you, oh, make these dietary changes. And it's not like going raw vegan or nothing, and then he gets people healed from a lot of the conditions that people that are eating a raw vegan diet would get healed from, right? Without making them go raw vegan. And they're still eating meat and stuff. I mean, to small percentage.
Mm-hmm.
But his main tenet, and of course, he tailors this to basically, because you have bacteria in you, and if you have certain bacteria, like you may have like an overgrowth of certain bacteria that loves the food you're eating. So for example, for me, in my microbiome test that I show on OK Raw, I have an overgrowth of Prevotella copperi, which basically,
It loves fruit.
I found out that it loves fruit, and there was a website that I found that Prevotella copperi hates potatoes. I was like, oh, this is great. As a raw vegan for 25 years at that point, I haven't eaten potatoes because you got to cook them, and they're toxic. But meanwhile, now I have this overgrowth of Prevotella, and it's like an apartment building in like New York City that has rent control. Once people are in there, they're not going to move out. And so like microbiome's kind of dug in. This is what John eats. He's given us food that we could survive, and now we're like overgrowth, and now that prevents other foundational species like taking residence in there because I have this overgrowth. So now then I'm like, okay, what do I need to eat to now reduce the Prevotella? So I'm like, oh, I need to eat like less fruit and maybe eat more potatoes because it hates potatoes, and it's not gonna like, it's gonna let other bacteria in that loves potatoes. So I gotta have a better balanced microbiome, you know, based on the studies we see about microbiome. And they still don't know a lot, but they do know the main things. In general, we want certain foundational species, or in, as I said, long health span people that generally are healthier. So that's one thing. We don't know all the exact proportions, but they have these foundational species, and they know basically in general, if you have like, you want to have a greater diversity, because like in society, diversity creates resilience. So, you know, if you have like a plumber, a carpenter, you know, a guy that works on AC and everything, like if we have all these people that could fix our house, we have a problem, we could call that one guy. But if you only have a plumber, and the plumber's the only guy, but then you got a problem with your heating system, he can't help you with that. So it's like, that's how the microbiome is. There's certain microbes that do this or do that can help prevent disease, that help prevent, you know, stuff going on in your lungs. They have their like the gut brain axis that could, you know, depression and all these things, if you don't have the right gut bugs and they're not producing the short chain fatty acids that could like help your, you know, not to have leaky gut. And so there's like, it goes like super complex.
Yeah.
We still don't know a lot, but the main thing is we want to generally have a greater diversity, and we want to have the good foundational species. And so in general, so the generality to get this, because we could go specific, like the doctor that I talked about that like will get your microbiome test and say, eat these foods because that'll increase these bacteria that you don't have and decrease these ones that you have too many of. Like the general thing is that he'll say you want to eat 40 different types of plants in a week.
Wow.
So that means when you're eating different plants, that means you're getting different fibers and also different polyphenols and different nutrients that then can feed your microbiome.
And what were the results when you retested your microbiome?
So progressively over each test, my microbiome has been getting better and better according to the test results. Yes.
Wow.
Slowly but surely. It's not happening that quickly.
Yeah. And look, it's important that we have different points of view and different approaches and all these different strategies that we can all learn about. And whether or not I decide to eat the same way, or that we're going to eat the exact same 40 things or 20, 30, or, you know, whatever it is, I'm still, at this point, I'm interested enough to get tested. I mean, I haven't, but I'm going to do it, you know, and I'll put a link to your video about the microbiome. You know, if people want to learn more for themselves about this subject, that I agree, we're just getting started to start to understand it.
I mean, the thing I want to say, Dave, also is that, you know, my microbiome test and other long-term raw vegans that are my friends that have gotten their microbiome test that I've seen tend to be low propionate producers, which propionate is a very important short-chain fatty acids, has to do with a lot of things in our bodies. And so that concerns me, because acetate and is high, which is good. And butyrate was, actually no, butyrate was low, sorry. Butyrate was low, and then acetate and propionate were high in the raw vegan tests I've seen. That being said, there are raw vegans that I know that do have really excellent microbiome tests, but then they also don't eat like a standard like raw vegan diet. They eat a lot of variety.
More diversity, more variety.
More variety, processed a little bit in different ways. And then also too, it also depends on like your starting point too. So like I was not breastfed as a child, so that may have also impacted my microbiome.
Okay.
Well, it probably did impact my microbiome because I was not breastfed and certain bacteria.
Were you C-sectioned?
No, I was vaginally birthed, but
Okay.
not breastfed because my mom said I wouldn't drink breast milk, which really sucked.
Yeah. And
So, and she only fed me formula.
if you got a C-section, you're also at a disadvantage
Of the microbiome, yeah.
as well. So like you're saying, it depends on the individual.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. I definitely don't know them all, but like at least one of the things that you can control at this day and age is the foods you're eating and putting into your mouth.
Wow. So we're talking with John Kohler. We're so grateful that we had this opportunity to have this conversation with John Kohler from OK Raw and Growing Your Own Greens and Discount Juicers. And John is also going to be at Texas Fruit Festival. So we're super excited to have John back at Texas Fruit Festival. You can find all the details at texasfruitfestival.com. So I guess as we wrap up, John Kohler is part of this movement or part of this group called the Raw Vegan Group, and has been now for 3 decades, and whether or not John eats 100% raw vegan diet, or now you only eat 75% or 80%, or,
Depends on the day.
John Kohler is a part of this movement. Like it's they're one and the same, right? Because it's not a black and white thing. People are eating all kinds of different individualized way within this. So I guess my question to you is, where do you see the movement going? Where do you see kind of the future of, at a larger scale, the future of humanity? But I guess within that, just this movement where people are figuring out diet modification and whole foods and raw foods as a solution to these issues we're having. Where do you see that movement going within the bigger picture of humanity, the health of humanity, and so forth?
So I mean, I think that I've seen a lot of raw vegans come and go over the years, and like the rise and fall of raw veganism, and a lot of people getting into the movement, but then a lot of people bailing out because, once again, if you just start restricting too much, then you're more likely to fail and not get the results you want, and then is more likely to not likely to work in the long term either, which makes me really sad. So I think that what I think really people should be doing is they should be embracing, like, once again, diversity of fruits and vegetables and other whole plant foods, once again, that are minimally processed. I hope that in the future the raw vegan movement gets more nuanced instead of so dogmatic, because maybe 100 years ago dogma could work because it was the best information we had, but now there's a lot of science, and if you start looking at the science, reading the science, you could see the more I learn, the more I know I don't know, because there's a lot more nuance always in science. And yeah, I hope that in the movement specifically we get out of some of the dogma, and and people could come true to updating their philosophies or their beliefs based on the science, instead of holding true to old beliefs that, in my opinion, are no longer accurate based on the science.
Wow.
And that I think could hurt people in the long run instead of help them, which I would hope everybody in this movement would like to help people.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, John Kohler is the real deal. You have never been. You've always, from what I can tell, you're someone who you stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
You put your own truth out there. Actually, I would say, John, you would even to your own disadvantage sometimes, right?
Yep.
You would stand out there and say your truth.
My belief, my truth, absolutely.
And that,
John, even if it costs me in social situations or whatever other reasons.
Yeah, and John really does want to help people, and so I'm honored to know you and interview you here. And so John Kohler from OK Raw, from speaking at Texas Fruit Festival. Any final parting thoughts as we sit out here in the beautiful landscape in Nevada? Any parting thoughts for the listener?
Parting thoughts is, diet is only one part of your health. It's very important, especially in the raw vegan movement. We need to remember this. Community, having friends, so important. So I love hanging out with you today, Dave. Getting out to nature, like we're in nature today. I encourage also everybody to always improve. Even if it's a small improvement today, it could work out to be a large improvement over time. Whether you're going to upgrade your appliances, increase the quality of the food you're eating by either growing it yourself or sourcing higher quality food. Like we were picking the world's best fresh dates earlier today, like right off the like the palm trees. Like, I mean, this is available for everybody to be able to upgrade your food. You know, not go to the grocery store, go to the health food store, maybe get organic. That's an upgrade from conventional. Go to local farmers and farmers markets. That's an upgrade over like stuff that's being imported, or even just grow your own. So like, I always want people to just, even if they're just making a tiny improvement, those tiny improvements will add up to be a large improvement over time. And it's unfortunate that some people in this movement just don't really, encourage people to like do better as good as they could, because like, oh,
In terms of the ingredients,
like,
quality
yeah, like
quality of ingredients,
some
so forth.
some people believe that like, oh, just conventional fruit from the grocery store is fine, you could be raw vegan on that, which you can be. But I'm like, if you want a better level of health, you want to get food that is more alive, more living, more vibrant. And like, there's no better vibrancy of any dates you've ever eaten in your life than the ones we literally
Yeah,
picked off the tree still alive and put in our
incredible.
mouth. They're
No,
like watery, delicious, like gooey, chewy, like everything you could ever ask for.
incredible, incredible. So last question is, what's your message to the listener who says, John, you're a smart guy, I think you're on track, but all this, it seems like a lot of work. It seems like a lot of work, having to figure all this stuff out, and then I got to up my game, I got to upgrade my ingredients, this sounds hard, and maybe they're not motivated to do it. What's your message to that person?
So, I mean, something that I heard from another raw vegan teacher back in the day when I went to a conference in like Fort Lauderdale, Florida, actually. By the inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard. There may be a lot of things you guys can upgrade and do, but just pick out one
Okay.
and start today.
Okay, and then you do like a little improvement, and then maybe the next day or the next week you do another little
It
improvement.
might be next year. I mean, one improvement today. Maybe you're just going to commit to like growing sprouts in your kitchen. Like, that's a huge improvement over buying greens that are being shipped in from somewhere. Like, it's so much full of life force, and sprouts are more nutritious than full-size vegetables. I mean, that's a small improvement. I mean, buying a vacuum blender instead of traditionally blending and oxidizing your food, one-time investment of a vacuum blender, you now are preserving more nutrients by a one-time purchase. Not even changing the food, but you can buy the same food. So like, there's all these little like upgrades. Maybe I should have a video of like simple upgrades you can do to up your game.
5 easy upgrades you can do.
I can sell that pretty easy. But like, yeah, so it's like, these are not hard, but like, once again, by the inch it's a cinch, by the yard it's hard. You don't have to do all these overnight. I didn't do all these overnight. I learned about vacuum blending in like 2017. I've been doing it ever since, because I learned there was a better way to blend. And I was like, oh my God, I've been blending wrong all these years. I learned that about juicing too. There's a better way to juice than using a slow juicer. It's to vacuum juice by vacuum blending and then putting in a bag, because you're not oxidizing and it's breaking down to finer particle size. Everything I've done, I didn't like just, I did by the inch as a cinch. I did seriously by doing one step at a time and modifying, learning more, changing, modifying a bit more. So I'd say, once again, don't make any major jumps. That's when you're likely to, crash and burn. Make small little changes that you could build and grow upon each day.
By the yard, it's hard. By the inch, it's a cinch.
Yeah.
3,000 easy steps with John Kohler. John Kohler, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.